Welcome back, y'all. We're about to start our mapping section of this Stat 340 class. So these notes that are shown here are the notes that I'm going through right now. We'll be doing number 1 through number 6. The other thing to remember is in the Blackboard site, I link to this COVID coverage in Michigan in our shared cloud. I would recommend that you have that open so you're able to follow along as we're doing the coding. It helps you to understand things just a little bit better. So this might not be necessary. I just want to remind you that in these 3 dashes is my YAML header. So this is going to have the title COVID coverage, author, and you'll notice that I don't have date and I don't have other items in there. You can have that as small or as big as you want, basically. And then today we're doing an output of a Word document, and I'll explain why in future videos. Remember then when you're in that white space, that's going to be just a general text editor. And here we're going to have a header because we've got those hashtags as loading required packages. And then you'll notice that we have just a sentence available for you to know what exactly we're doing below. So then in this code chunk, and remember, you know it's a code chunk from 11 to 30 because it's got bookends with these apostrophes. And also, you know, over here it says run current chunk. So this, and it's offset a little bit differently in the color. It's got a background of gray, but that can be hard to see sometimes in these videos. And then it also, for this one, it starts with R in the curly bracket. That means that the language we're using is R. And then the include equals false means that I do not want the markdown document to include this chunk of code, hence include equals false. Now you'll notice it says reading county data and then loading required packages. I just want to prove to you that this will not be included. So when I knit, and this is going to come up different, it'll say download because it's a Word document. When I say knit, I can open this Word document and you'll see that this whole chunk that is reading and required libraries is gone. It went into my other screen. Here it is. See, loading required packages, reading county data, and it has disappeared. So that is a helpful function. You have to be careful when using it though, because like with library packages, I don't need people to know what that is. But if you're doing something like creating a graph, you don't want to do include equals false because then the graph wouldn't show up. So these are packages that we need to be able to perform the mapping that we're going to do. I'm not going to talk about what those are. And then we're going to move into the chunk of code that's going to start reading in our data and doing some basic data manipulation. Now, remember when you have that hashtag in a chunk of code. So again, we know it's a chunk of code. You can see it's in a different color. It's got the option to run it. Here, when you have the hashtag, that becomes a comment. So in the syntax or in the plain text editor, you can see it's blue because that'll be a header. In the chunk of code, it's green. And I use that because I like to write myself notes or write you notes. And essentially what that does is R just ignores that portion. So that comment, it's not going to try to run it. It just lets you do whatever you want there and it will ignore it. So next we need to have the number of regions, which is essentially the number of counties. It's just one thing that's necessary for the mapping that we're going to do. And then after that, I am going to be reading in my data file. Now, we talked about in week 2 how to upload data and then subsequently read it in. So remember, you would go to upload and then you choose a file the same way that you would attaching something to an email. So you can see I have 2 files that I've uploaded. If you wanted to, you could look at them here. You see the first one is the county population for the state of Michigan. And the second one is a very big file. It is actually COVID vaccination data for March 20th for the whole United States, broken down by county. So we won't talk about this one in this video, but this one we're going to read in right now. So to read in a CSV file, it's read.csv. So whatever the extension is, that's the function that you would have to use over here. You say the specific file name. We're saying header equals true because we have variable names on the top. So that means that we want it to know that that first line in the data set is the variable names. And of course, because it's a CSV, it's separated by a comma. Now, remember too here that this is assigning what we're reading in to state pop or stpop. So when I run this and I look at state pop, now you can see it's the same data, but now I will be able to call it with just that state pop because that's what I assigned it to. Now, I like to make sure that that is looking correct, so I can do the head of the state pop if I wanted to, and that will show up at the bottom of the code, and that just does the first 6 rows, and we can see that looks correct, but we also knew that was looking correct because we clicked on that state pop in our environment window. We also could make sure that it's the right size because remember we said it was supposed to be 83 counties. So if I run this and the shortcut key for running code is Control Enter, I can see down here that it's 83 by 4, 83 by 4. And of course we knew that because over here in this state pop it says 83 by 4. So it's 83 counties. That means that it's done that correctly. And then it says it has 4 variables. Now some of you may, when you pull the data in, for your particular state, you may have accidentally or just the data that you found, it would include the word county, and I don't want that, so this is code for removing that. Essentially, this code will allow you the opportunity to reassign a new observation that removes county names to the exact same variable. So essentially, it's saying take the data for state pop and the variable county names, use this string remove all, which is just like it sounds. It's going to remove something from the data. Do it to the data state pop for specifically the variable county names. And if you see, I'm telling R this, if you see a space with the word county, remove it. And so it will still go into the same county names variable. It's just going to essentially take out all the county names and put back just all of the words county and put back just the actual county, if that makes sense. So if it said Alcona County, it would remove the county. And again, this is just a fail-safe in case y'all come in with that particular observation type. I want you to be able to know how to remove it, and that's the code for doing that. We do, however, have to create a new variable. So that's adjusting an old variable or a variable that's already existing. Here is creating a new variable. So anytime that you want to do something to a specific variable or create a new variable, this is the assign option. I'm saying for the data state pop, I'm saying for the variable, and now I'm creating a new variable called row names. Now, right now in the state pop, remember, all we have is the state, county names, population, and we have a third one that probably is because of some spaces, but nevertheless, now we are going to assign a new variable, row name. So when we run this particular code, you will see that there's going to be a new variable, a new column called row names. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste, and then 0 means that I want to paste this option, this set of text to this variable, and the 0 means I want no spaces. So I'm going to create a new variable, row names. I'm doing it by using county names, and I want it to have no spaces. So when I run this, and remember Control Enter is that run option after you highlight, you see I have a new variable called row names, and you can see that there's no space there. It's Michigan with a comma, and I said put 0 spaces, and it added that county name to Michigan. Now, if you wanted to, you could see if I had no 0, it will give you the space. So this time, when I come back to the row names, you can see there's a space in between Michigan, comma, and then the county name. But I do need it to be no spaces, and so I'm going to run that again to make sure. Now, if you wanted to check the data, and we are able to, because of this Studio Cloud, we're able to check it with this, but this is another way for you to be able to check that you have the new variable and that you can see the head of the data, so the first 6 lines, and make sure things are working correctly. So here we see all the variables, we see the new one we created, and then for the first 6 lines, you can see that it's run that code correctly. In the next video, I will continue on with the notes.